Mr. Kohnke, can you state your full name and spell your last name for the court reporter, please?
Brett Kohnke, it's Kohnke.
Thank you. Mr. Kohnke, were you in March of 2018 employed with the Dunn County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
How long were you employed with the Dunn County Sheriff's Office, and from what time period?
Roughly 16 years, started in March 2002 till May of 18.
May 2018?
Yep.
During the time in March 2018, what was your title?
Narcotics investigator.
Were you a part of the West Central Task Force?
Yes.
Is that a drug task force?
Yes.
Do you have any training in death investigations?
I went to the Wisconsin Division of Criminal Investigations 2-week death school.
Do you remember approximately what year or when that was?
I tried checking. I think it was September, October of either 2014 or 15. Don't remember for sure.
You said that's a 2-week school?
Yes.
Is that put on by the Department of Justice?
Yes.
Now, in this case, you, in March of 2018, you collected some items from the Eau Claire Police Department. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach? You may. I'm showing you what's marked as Exhibit 656, which is also DOJ 400. Do you recognize what that item is?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do you recognize what that item is?
Yes, it's an inventory record for the sheriff's office for when we collect evidence.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
For when we collect evidence.
I'm going to show you exhibit number 553. You see that?
Yep.
Do you recognize what that exhibit is?
That was the sexual assault kit that I obtained from Eau Claire Police Department.
Does that exhibit also, those inventory logs for property as it relates to the items of evidence you received from the Eau Claire Police Department?
Yes.
I'd move both of those exhibits into evidence, please.
Objection? No, Judge. All right, Exhibit 656 and Exhibit 553 will be received.
Now, I'll have you look at Exhibit 553. You said there's a blood kit, but it also mentions a SANE kit and victim's clothing, correct?
Correct.
And now if you look at the other exhibit, and I apologize, could you tell me what that number is?
655.
The green one that you have.
The exhibit number?
Yes.
655.
Now, Exhibit 655, that contains more detailed descriptions of items of clothing, is that correct?
Correct.
And what numbers are those, from what to what in the item log?
Item number 28 through 36.
Can you go one by one through each of those and explain what each of those is according to the sheet in front of you?
Item number 28 would be the, essentially the sexual assault kit that is used at the hospital that was collected for any evidence that was collected at the hospital. Item number 29 also would have been obtained at the hospital and would be any blood drawn from
Ezra McCandless?
Ezra McCandless. Item number 30 would be leggings that were obtained from McCandless. 30A.
We have no objection to the publication of this if it's helpful.
Your Honor, may I approach it? Let's put it on the Elmo.
All right, now, you're talking about the list?
Exhibit 655.
Any objection to 655 coming
No,
in?
I believe it's
Exhibit-
already been received. No objection to publication.
I don't think it was.
I think he said 656 and not 655.
Yeah, 656 was received.
If I did, it should have been 655, Judge.
Is that DOJ 400?
It is, I apologize.
Okay, so 655 will be received, and
We don't have 656.
I refer to 656, we'll just disregard that.
Thank you. Now, we'll just go through Exhibit 655, starting with item number 28. You said that's the forensic evidence collection kit from the Eau Claire Police Department, correct?
That I obtained from them, yes.
And second, item number 29 was the blood kit from the Eau Claire Police Department, correct?
Correct.
Exhibits 30, 30A, or I'm sorry, items 30, 30A, and then 31 through 36 are all physical items of clothing from Miss McCandless, correct?
Correct.
And those were all items that you collected from the Eau Claire Police Department, right?
Correct.
And what did you do with them when you left the Eau Claire Police Department?
I brought them back to the sheriff's office to be entered into our evidence.
When you recovered them from, or retrieved them from the Eau Claire Police Department, were they all in sealed packaging?
Yes.
Was it your understanding that those were items of clothing that were recovered from the defendant on the day that she was taken to the hospital?
Yes.
So when you got to the Dunn County Sheriff's Office, did you open the items? For photographing?
I did, yes, at some point.
Did you photograph the items?
I did.
After you were done photographing the items, were they logged into evidence?
Yes.
While they were open, did you do anything to alter the contents of the items in the bags?
I did not.
And before they were logged into evidence, they were resealed, I assume?
Yes.
So were each of the items in the same condition from the time they were taken out of the bag, photographed, and then put back in and sealed up?
Yes.
As part of this case, did you also transport a number of electronic items from the Dunn County Sheriff's Office to the Chippewa Valley Regional Computer Forensics Lab at the Eau Claire Police Department?
Yes.
And were those items, if you recall, an HP laptop, 2 Samsung cell phones, an Apple iPad, a 32 gigabyte SD card, and a 4 gigabyte flash drive?
That would sound correct.
And were those items turned over to detective or investigator, I believe it's Detective Chad Stettel?
Yes.
Now, as part of your work as a drug investigator, is it fair to assume you analyzed cell phone data before?
Yes.
And is there a specific process that you utilize in order to extract cell phone data from a phone to either a hard drive or a flash drive?
I used a Celebrite to extract any data and then placed onto a hard drive, or not a hard drive, a flash drive.
And Celebrite is something we've heard a little bit about. Is that a program or a tool that you use to extract that data?
Yes.
Is that something that you're trained in?
I received some training from the chief deputy on it.
Was that prior to your involvement in this case?
Yes.
At the time when you were a narcotics investigator, how regularly were you conducting extractions using Celebrite of cell phones?
It would vary. It could be 1 phone a week. It could be 5 phones a week, just depended on what we had going on.
Do you have a ballpark idea of approximately how many cell phone extractions you completed prior to March of 2018?
I'm going to say somewhere in the range of 40 to 60 phones. Couldn't tell you for sure.
Could you just give the jury a general idea of what that process entails on your end?
You'd hook it up to the Celebrite, and it would ask you to make some various changes to the phone, which would allow it to access the information, so you could draw that information from the phone onto a flash drive. It was typically a matter of changing settings within the phone.
Are there different levels of extractions that produce a different amount of data from a cell phone?
Yes.
And one of those, is that a physical extraction
Yes.
versus a logical extraction?
Yes.
Do you remember having contact with Jason Mengel on March 23rd, 2018?
Yes.
Did you obtain a cell phone from him?
I did.
Was that his cell phone, if you know?
Yes.
Did you conduct a cell phone extraction using the Celebrate tool of that cell phone?
Yes.
And prior to coming to court today, have you had an opportunity to review an item of evidence? If I may approach, you may. Have you seen this item before?
Yes.
And is that your initials on both the packaging as well as the contained flash drive?
Yes.
And that's Exhibit 262, correct?
Correct.
Is that, based on your review of the information contained on that flash drive, an accurate copy of the cell phone extraction you conducted of Jason Mengel's cell phone around March 23rd of 2018?
Yes.
I'd move Exhibit 262 into evidence.
We approach, Judge?
Subject to limitation, Exhibit 262 will be received. Basically, that it's extraction, it's a copy of the data contained in that cell phone.
Thank you. Nothing further for this witness.
Okay, any cross-examination?
Yes, thank you. You made observations of the clothes Ms. McCandless was wearing, is that right?
I'm sorry?
You took photographs of the clothes that Ms. McCandless was wearing on March 22nd, is that right?
Yes.
Judge, I want to talk with this witness about item exhibits 639, 640, 619, and 632, all of which would have been previously marked and received.
All right, thank you.
Permission to publish then when I...
You may.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 639. Does that appear to be the photo of the T-shirt that you'd collected that Ms. McCandless was wearing on the 22nd of March 2018?
Looks to be yes.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 640. Does that appear to be the blue flannel or the blue button-up shirt that Ms. McCandless was wearing on March 22nd, 2018?
Yes.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 619. Does that appear to be the gold sweater that Ms. McCandless was wearing on March 22nd, 2018?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as 632. Does that appear to be the white and blue flannel shirt that Ms. McCandless was wearing on March 22nd, 2018?
I believe so, yes.
You, and those, your photos, you took like hundreds of photos of her clothing, is that right?
I don't remember how many I took. But
Lots.
yeah.
Fair to say, on the top half, that was what you documented her clothing was those 4 layers, correct? You took photos of 6 items of clothing, is that right?
I don't remember what I took photos of, or how many I should say.
Okay, how many photos or how many items?
No, how many items, sorry.
Okay. But you agree that
Those look familiar from what I recall.
the 4 items that I just showed you?
Yeah.
Okay. Showing you what's been marked as exhibits 569 and 570. Do you recognize those articles of clothing?
I'm assuming those are the ones I photographed. I don't recall, but
Do you recognize these or not?
not completely, no. I couldn't tell you.
You took a whole series of photos, did you not?
Yes.
And your whole series of photos was documented on DOJ CD RRRR. It's 4 R's. Do these appear to be photos that you took.
Yes.
Would it refresh your memory to look through all of the photos that you took on RRR to see if the two items of clothing here?
I can, yes.
Does that refresh your memory, sir?
They look to be the same.
So your memory's been refreshed?
Best it can be.
You would agree that Exhibit 569 is a photo of the leggings that Ms. McCandless was wearing on March 22nd, 2018?
Yes.
You agree that Exhibit 570 is a photo of the front of the jeans that Ms. McCandless was wearing on March 22nd, 2018? Agreed?
Yes.
Move for the admission of 569 and 570.
No objection.
Permission to publish.
Exhibits 569 and 570 be received. You may publish.
On the screen there now is Exhibit 569, is that correct?
Yes.
And then the next, that's a picture of her leggings, is that right?
Yes.
And then on Exhibit 570, that's the picture of her jeans, is that correct?
Correct.
You participated in the search of Mr. Woodworth's apartment, did you not?
Yes.
Did you take the photos that were conducted during that search?
I don't believe I did, no.
Okay. Do you recall the recovery of some books and some journals in that apartment?
I honestly don't remember what was recovered or what I recovered from there.
Okay. There's a couple of books here, book that's entitled Fear and Trembling by Mr. Kierkegaard. Do you recall seeing that?
I do not.
Okay. You don't know where that was recovered from?
No idea.
All right. Those are the only questions I have. Thank you.
Any redirect?
Very brief. You never actually saw the defendant wearing any of the clothing, correct?
Correct.
You just simply picked it up, it was packaged already from Eau Claire Police Department and took it back?
Correct.
Okay, nothing further.
Who gave it to you?
Eau Claire Police Department.
Do you know where they got it from?
The hospital.
Do you know where the hospital got it from?
From what I was told, Ezra McCandless.
From her body,
Correct.
her corpus? Her body?
Yes.
That's all.
All right, you may step down. Thank you, Mr. Kohnke. Is Mr. Kohnke free to leave?
Yes.
Okay, you have a good day. Thank you. Thank you.
Can you please state and spell your last name for the record?
Scott McRoberts, McRoberts.
What is your occupation?
I'm a patrol captain right now with the Dunn County Sheriff's Department,
And how long have you been employed in law enforcement?
27 years.
On March 23rd of 2018, do you recall being contacted by Sergeant Rich Day regarding a potential homicide investigation?
I do.
And after you learned of this investigation, what did you do?
I proceeded to the office to lend any assistance I could.
And were you later assigned to perform a neighborhood canvass?
Yes.
What do you do during a neighborhood canvass?
I was assigned to check the area of 430th Avenue and County E for any potential residents in that area that may have seen anything suspicious the last day, day and a half, and potentially might have seen a silver Chevy Impala in the area.
And did you obtain any information from any neighbors?
Nothing pertinent, no.
Did you also spend some time looking for any type of surveillance cameras?
Yes.
And what did you do for that?
Throughout that route from 430th Avenue, I traveled County E toward the Eau Claire County line. The only camera I found at that time shooting to the road was at the 24/7 telecom site just in Eau Claire County on County Road E.
And did you learn whether 24/7 telecom had any video surveillance pertinent to this investigation?
Yes.
And what did they tell you?
I met with one of their representatives, and I was advised that their cameras are motion activated. The camera shooting toward County E only captures traffic coming into the driveway when a vehicle would drive into the driveway. It doesn't run 24/7 and capture actual traffic traveling on County E. So we did not have anything that we found related to this case.
The following day, on March 24th of 2018, do you recall searching the ditch lines?
Yes.
And why were you doing that?
Just in the event there was other evidence missed during the evening search, we still had that area, an officer on scene for security during that time, and we just wanted to go back during the daylight to see if we could find any other items.
If I could publish for the jury Exhibit 277, it's from the drone photos, it's already been entered into evidence.
You may, that's already received.
Yes. And if you can utilize that pointer to just visually point out for the jury where you were searching.
Initially, when I arrived, Deputy Feeney was doing a drone flight in this area. Deputy Reed and I, and Deputy Feeney, once he's done with the drone, searched each side of the road here on up through past the vehicle in this general vicinity. At that time, I had placed a phone call to Investigator Kohnke, who was doing an interview to see if he had learned anything that would guide our search. And he told me that...
Objection, hearsay. It's going, and can we approach just briefly, Judge? Just approach.
So Sergeant McRoberts, did you receive some information which caused you to change the area in which you were searching?
Well, we finished the area. We finished along the fence line there. Since that was snow covered too, we were looking for tracks. There were no tracks in, no tracks out. So we eliminated this area and then started searching westbound on 430th Avenue along the south ditch.
And as you proceeded up that road, do you know where the Don Sipple residence is?
Yes.
And can you just point that out with the red dot right over around that area? Was there less snow cover as you traveled up that road?
Yes, as you got past that area there.
And was a knife located then near the driveway to Sipple's daughter's residence?
Yes,
And did you observe that knife?
yes.
And what, if anything, did you do?
Deputy Feeney had told me he could see a knife in that location. I messaged Sergeant Kurtzall's a picture of the knife since he was at the autopsy. They requested some measurements, so we provided some estimates on the length, width, type of knife it was without handling the knife.
And was this on March 24th, 2018?
Yes.
I'm showing you it's been previously marked as Exhibit 283. Have you seen this diagram before?
Yes.
And where the knife was located on this diagram, are you able to identify that for the jury?
Yes.
And where was that?
Should be right nearest the driveway, labeled B.
And were some photographs also taken with respect to the knife?
Yes.
I'm showing you it's been marked as exhibits 435 to 441. And are those accurate depictions of the knife as it was located on March 24th, 2018?
Yes.
I'd move exhibits 435 to 441 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, exhibits 435 through 441 will be received.
Request to publish those on the screen.
You may.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 435. What is depicted in this photograph?
A knife.
And is that how you recall it being located on March 24th with the blade pointed up?
Yes.
What's depicted in Exhibit 436?
Is this it?
Yes.
The knife as well.
And what is depicted in Exhibit 437?
The knife, and you can see the background of the civil residence there.
And Exhibit 438?
I can see a cone in the background, again, the civil residence, the driveway leading in.
And do you know if that cone was in relation to where the knife was located?
Can't recall if we placed that. There was a cone left there overnight to mark some foot tracks in the area, and also the back of a cell phone cover that had been located along the roadway.
And Exhibit 439, what does this photograph depict?
It gives a view back down toward the dirt road and looking east from where the knife was located.
And it appears that there's some potentially cars and people standing down, further down in the picture. Do you see that?
Correct. Yes.
Is that where the entrance to the field drive is?
Yes.
Exhibit 440, what's depicted in this photograph?
Yeah. In the very forefront, you can see the knife, and in the background again, that view east to that field driveway.
And then Exhibit 441,
That's a measurement of the knife blade.
May I, Coach Renner?
You may.
I'm showing you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 233. What is that item?
It is a folding knife.
And is it the same knife that you recall seeing on March 24th, 2018?
Yes,
That was in the ditch line?
correct.
I'd move Exhibit 233 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Judge.
Exhibit 233 will be received.
And then I'd request to publish that to the jury if you wouldn't mind walking down and showing that to the jury.
You may, go ahead.
Three days later, after the knife was located on March 27th of 2018, do you recall executing a search warrant on the defendant for her DNA?
Yes,
And is the same person you obtained DNA from present in the courtroom today?
yes, she is.
Could you describe what she's wearing and where she is seated for the court?
She's sitting at the defense table in the middle, wearing a black coat and glasses.
Record will reflect the witness has identified Ms. McCandless, the defendant.
And what did you, or how did you obtain the DNA sample from the defendant on March 27th?
Well, there's two different things we did with the search warrant. We obtained buccal swabs, which are cotton swabs used to swab the interior cheek area of the mouth. And also we pulled hair samples from the head hair.
And what, if anything, were you wearing to ensure your DNA was not contaminating the samples?
While doing the buccals, I had rubber gloves on and just swabbed the interior of the mouth, placed those swabs into evidence bags. And then on the hair pulls, I wore a dust mask as well, just to eliminate any possibility of breathing onto Ms. McCandless while I proceeded to pluck the hairs.
And what did you do with the samples once you were done collecting them?
Both samples were turned over to Sergeant Day eventually for transmittal to the crime lab.
That same day, do you recall walking the ditch line again to try to locate Alex Woodworth's cell phone?
Yes,
And were you able to locate his cell phone?
no,
But while you were there, do you recall speaking with a man named Chester Davidson?
Yes.
And what was that conversation regarding?
It was regarding one trip he had made through there. He had indicated he thought it was on the Friday, which would have been the 23rd. Initially is what he thought. He was traveling to work and saw a small sedan parked blocking the eastbound lane at that field drive, and he had to go out around it. After having further conversation, he realized it was actually on the 22nd.
And did he show you his work schedule to confirm that it was actually March 22nd that he saw that vehicle?
Yes, he did.
And was your conversation with Mr. Davidson audio or visually recorded?
No.
And why not?
I obtained a written statement from him on scene.
And were you planning on performing any interviews while you were out searching the ditch line?
No.
And then on March 29th of 2019, 7 days after the date in question in this case, did you search the ditch line again for Alex's phone?
Yes.
And were you finally able to locate his phone?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 283 again. Are you able to determine with the letter marking where the cell phone was located?
It would be just under the 430th Avenue portion labeled C. Yes.
And what, if anything, did you do with the cell phone when you located it?
I actually placed a phone call to Alex's father. He had initially told us Alex had a Nokia phone, and I could see this was an LG. And after speaking with John, he actually had the records indicating it would have been an LG cell phone, and he provided me with the IMEI number, which would identify that phone, and that is the number that I found on the phone.
And did you take photographs of the cell phone as you locate it?
Yes.
I'm showing you it's been marked as Exhibits 503 through 508. And do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
And do they accurately depict the cell phone as you located it on March 29th, 2019?
Yes.
Move Exhibits 503 to 508 into evidence.
Any objection? No objection. All right, Exhibits 503 to 508 will be received.
And I'd request to publish on my screen those photographs.
You may.
And what do you see in Exhibit 503?
I can see the cell phone right here.
And Exhibit 504?
Again, a close-up of the cell phone and the battery that was dislodged from the phone.
And what does Exhibit 505 depict?
An overview of what that ditch line looked like and the grass that's matted down indicating there was flowing water at one point.
And 506?
The phone, the battery, and again, the strands of grass, and again, directionally laid down to the east where that water is flowing in the ditch.
What is Exhibit 507?
It's a close-up of the ID here, identifying that phone.
In Exhibit 508?
A picture of the face of the phone showing some damage.
And did you also place the phone in some rice?
We did,
Why did you do that?
to try to extract any existing moisture that might have been in the phone, hoping that we would be able to download and get the information off the phone.
Thank you. showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 235. What is that item?
Is that just 35?
235.
235.
It does appear to be an LG cell phone.
And does it appear that it's changed condition since the last time you've seen it?
Yes.
State would move Exhibit 235 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 235 will be received.
Also, as part of this investigation, did your office execute a warrant for an Instagram account belonging to the defendant?
Yes.
And what was the name of the Instagram account associated with it? And was the name of the Instagram account associated with the defendant?
Yes.
All right, I just, I guess this is for court TV. Please, if you would just block out the title for purposes of broadcast, so we don't have I think there's a delay, so we'd ask that not be broadcast. Thank you.
Captain McRoberts, I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 267. What is that document?
It's a certificate of authenticity of domestic records of regularly conducted activity at Instagram.
And is it related to the defendant's Instagram account?
Yes.
I'd move Exhibit 267 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Judge.
Okay, and subject to the limitation discussed, Exhibit 267 will be received.
May I approach again?
You may.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 268. Do you recognize that disc?
Yeah, it's a DVD with the Instagram download.
And are those your initials on the disc?
Yes.
And did you have an opportunity to review the contents of that disc sleeve to ensure they're accurate?
Yes.
And based on your review, is that an accurate copy of the Instagram account associated with the defendant?
Yes.
And move Exhibit 268 into evidence.
Same objections requesting the limitations previously discussed.
Okay, Exhibit 268 will be received for what it is, but not necessarily for the contents thereof. That would be a later issue, but the fact that it's a download of that data, it'll be received for that purpose.
I have no further questions.
Okay, cross-examination.
Thank you. Mr. McRoberts, I want to ask you some questions about March 27th when you were out searching the ditch line, okay?
Sure.
When you were out doing that, as you said, you were not planning on interviewing witnesses, citizens, or otherwise, correct?
Yes.
When you plan to do an interview, you bring certain equipment to aid you with that, is that right?
If it's planned, yes.
And if it's planned, you'd bring something to record it, is that correct?
Correct.
Because, as you know, the human memory isn't always perfect, so you try to make sure that it's accurately documented by getting a digital recording of what people say, is that right?
In many instances, yes.
Yeah. And so that's the best practice, agreed?
Sure.
On that day, because that wasn't your intention, you didn't have a digital recorder with you, agreed?
My squad car was there. I could have activated that at some point. I just went with the written statement.
And so your intention is still to make sure that you accurately record everything that's told you, correct?
Correct.
There's just different ways of you recording that, right?
Yes.
Sometimes you record it again with a digital recorder. Yes?
Yes.
Sometimes you have the person write out a written statement in their own words, agreed?
Correct.
And in addition to that, you also make a summary report of what you heard, is that right?
Yes.
And so you did that in this case. You wanted to make sure that you wrote down what it is that you heard, agreed?
Yes.
When you wrote all that down, you knew, hey, I don't have the reporter that I normally have, so I want to make sure I get this down all correct. Is that right?
Yes.
And so you wrote out a report about what Chester Davidson told you, is that right?
Yes.
And what Chester Davidson told you, just so we can put this into context, Chester Davidson was the bus driver going to work who said he saw a car at the entryway to this muddy road. Is that right?
Yes.
And what Chester Davidson told you is, as you put in your report, he couldn't recall who was driving. Agreed?
Yes.
Those are the words that he told you on that day, right?
Yes.
You also helped in the search of Alex's apartment, is that right?
I was there, yes.
Were you the one, somebody took photographs, were you the one that took photographs?
No, I did not.
Do you recall the collection of the evidence that was there?
I didn't deal with the actual collection or logging of any of the evidence, so I don't have much of a recollection of that portion.
Okay, there's a book over, there's several books over here, but one of the books that I believe is been marked as Exhibit 654. Did you collect that book called Fear and Loathing by Soren Kierkegaard?
I do not recall collecting that.
Okay, you don't know where that was found?
No, I don't.
Okay. On the 27th, you executed a search warrant in which you obtained samples from Ms. McCandless, is that correct?
Yes.
You collected her DNA, is that right?
Yes.
You also collected her hair, is that right?
Yes.
Do you know why it was that you were asked to collect her hair?
Well, I recall there was hair in the, I think, floor area of the back seat of the, or back passenger compartment of the vehicle, so we wanted to make a comparison of that.
The hair that was found with the hair that was actually with Ms. McCandless on her head still, right?
Yes.
All right, and so you collected some of that, right?
Correct.
And then you took that hair and you did what you did with the rest of the collections. You eventually put it in the process where it would get sent to the crime lab, right?
Yes.
The items that you recovered, I want to talk to you about that just briefly, okay? The Exhibit 283, there's three items here listed, EA, EB, and EC, is that correct?
Yes.
And the E is for evidence, is that right?
I believe so.
And the A is simply another way to write down the value of them, whether it's, or not the value, to document. Instead of 1, 2, 3, sometimes you just use letters, is that right?
Yes.
And on this, was it you that chose the labeling of them as A, B, or C, or did somebody else do that?
Somebody else did that.
Evidence, you'd said the knife is EB, is that right?
That's correct.
Was that found the same day that EA was found?
No,
Do you know what EA is?
that's the back of the cell phone.
Okay. And you know what EC is, the front of the cell phone?
The cell phone and the battery, yes.
Okay, so EC and EA essentially go together, right?
I never fit them together, but I think they do go together.
Okay. They're different parts of the same phone as far as you know, correct?
Yes.
And EC, you said you found that essentially in the ditch line in an area that to you looked like it had been underwater, right?
Well, it had been underwater previous days.
Sure. You'd been there on previous days,
Correct.
and you'd seen that there was water flowing in that area.
Yes.
And then afterwards, you saw, like you showed in the picture, the grass was matted down, showing that the water was flowing in a certain direction, right?
Yes.
Were you there the day when I believe there was a dog up there assisting in the search as well, is that right?
I was not out there then.
You weren't there then. But the item EC, the phone, was in a position where just days before it was under flowing water, correct?
Water or even snow, I can't recall exactly in that location how much snow would have been left.
So at some point it may have been in a snow form, correct?
Yes.
And then if it melted, it was then in a water form, right?
Yes.
And then it all melted away and ran off, and so then the phone was left to be there in the ditch, right?
Yes.
Right along near the roadway, correct?
Yes.
And it was, for lack of a better term, broken, right?
It was cracked on the screen and the battery was laying out of it. Yes,
And there was a whole nother piece that was missing from that position, right?
yes,
And do you know how that piece became broken off?
no.
The phone itself, EC, when you saw it, it did not appear to have any blood on it, right?
Correct, I did not note any blood.
And if you had, you'd have probably sent it to the crime lab if you'd seen something like that, correct?
Yes,
But because you didn't see any of that, you didn't send it to the crime lab, correct?
yes,
And I would imagine that probably didn't surprise you since it had been in flowing water for a number of days, correct?
yes.
Those are the only questions I have. Thank you.
Any redirect?
Just very briefly, so the cell phone, was it located in flowing water before, or was it in a snowbank? Or don't you recall?
The day I found it?
The day before? I mean, because you searched that area before, right?
Yeah, the actual day before, I was there on the 27th. I was not there on the 28th, as I recall, and then found it on the 29th. So I can't recall how much snow was left right at that area of the shoulder going into the ditch when I was there on the 27th to compare it.
So it's possible it was under a pile of snow? Is that right?
Yeah, it could have been washed under that snowbank, and that melted away and finally exposed it.
Sure. And how rapid was the water flowing? I mean, if you can describe any,
I recall a constant flow of water across that field drive because
That-
that's the direction it was going. All the water was heading down that way. And
along the ditch line or just along that entrance to the field drive?
well, from where there was snowpack yet, it was wherever the snow was melting, it was contributing to that flow. And where the cell phone was found at sea was certainly down farther than these other items that were found. And that area had more snow in the ditch
In what direction was the water flowing?
to the east.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, please. I want to talk to you about exhibits 503, 04, 05, and 06, okay? I'm going to put them on the Elmo, but if you think it helps for you to look at them in person, just let me know, okay?
These already received.
Yes.
They're here, correct?
So exhibit 503, is that up on the screen? You see that?
Yes.
And the phone, if I'm correct, is that it there?
Yes.
Okay. And the bottom of the picture, would that be the west side?
Yes.
And the top would be the east side?
Correct.
So as far, what you're saying is in this way, if the water's flowing from the bottom of the picture to the top of the picture,
Yes.
and it would be flowing, if the phone is in that position, the water's flowing over the top of that phone, correct?
Yes.
That was based upon your experience being there 2 days before. That phone there would have been under flowing water, correct?
Yes.
And as you said, I believe it was constantly flowing water, agreed?
Yes, at that time.
And by that time, you mean for a period of several days?
Well, it's not flowing overnight. When the temperatures get back down to freezing, it's going to stop flowing as the melt curtails. So then as the temperature warms again, it'll start flowing again.
And so whether it was a constant 24-hour period, it was under flowing water for certain periods over several days, agreed?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I believe that Captain McRoberts is all we have for you.
Can you please state and spell your last name for the record?
Josh Christenson. Christenson is spelled Christenson.
What is your occupation?
I'm a patrol sergeant for the Dunn County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been a sworn law enforcement officer?
About 18 years.
On March 23rd of 2018, do you recall being dispatched to the area of County Highway E and 430th Avenue?
I do.
And why were you dispatched there?
Eau Claire Police Department had located a deceased male in our county and asked that we respond to the area.
And was anyone else with you when you arrived?
I had a trainee deputy porter with me, whom I was field training at the time, and I met at the scene with Investigator Piper from Eau Claire and Sergeant Dave from our office.
And what, if anything, did you do when you arrived with respect to scene security?
Upon arrival, we just made sure that no one else went in there after we got there, while we decided what we were going to do from there.
And was a crime scene entry log sheet created?
Yes, it was.
May I approach?
You may.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 442. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
It's a crime scene entry log.
And it's, how many pages is it?
3.
And looking at Exhibit 442, can you determine approximately what time Katie Hoffmeyer from the Wisconsin Department of Justice, when she arrived?
It indicates that she entered the scene at 1954 hours.
On March 23rd of 2018?
Yes.
And was the scene secured until the evening of March 24th, 2018?
Yes.
I'd move Exhibit 442 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Judge.
Exhibit 442 will be received. Is that the right number?
Yes.
That'll be received.
On March 24th of 2018, do you recall returning back to the area of 430th Avenue to photograph some additional evidence?
Yes, I do.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibits 451 and 452. Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
And are they, what's depicted in the photographs?
Is the back of a LG cell phone and its location.
And what, if anything, did you do when you arrived out to the scene?
I was requested to respond there to photograph and collect the items as evidence. So upon arrival, I did that. I photographed the marked exhibits and collected them to the proper procedures and later took them to our evidence locker at our sheriff's office.
And are these accurate copies of the photographs, do you remember?
Yes.
I'd move Exhibits 451 and 452 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Judge.
Right, exhibits 451 and 452 will be received.
Request to publish those exhibits on my computer.
You may.
Officer, what is depicted in Exhibit 451?
That is 430th Avenue, and we are facing west. There's some traffic cones there. In the front portion of the photo is where the back of the cell phone was located.
And what's depicted in Exhibit 452?
That would be a close-up of said cell phone back with a evidence tag associated with it.
Thank you. Deputy, I'm showing you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 283. Looking at this diagram, are you able to determine what evidence marker was associated with the cell phone back that was located?
Yes, that would be E/A on the diagram.
Thank you. Then I'm also going to show you. Thank you. What's been marked as Exhibit 234. Do you recognize that item?
I do.
And what is it?
This is the item I collected at scene, which is also the item that is in the photographs.
And that's the same cell phone backing for an LG?
It is.
I move exhibit 235? Is that-
234, is it?
Does it say 234 on there?
234.
Sorry, thank you. 234 in evidence.
Any objection? Okay, exhibit 234 will be received.
I have no further questions.
All right, Mr. Nelson, are you doing cross? Go ahead.
Yes, please. Sure, I want to ask you some questions about Exhibit 451. Actually, can you, that's the photo we see up on the screen, is that right?
Yes.
You were the one that recovered the back of the cell phone?
Yes.
Prior to your recovering it, I think, were you the one that wrote down about the kids riding their bikes in the area?
That was not me, no.
Okay, but you remember the kids riding the bikes in the area?
I don't know anything about that.
You didn't make any observations of children riding bikes in the area?
Not when I was there, no.
You didn't talk to anybody else about kids riding over the back of that cell phone?
No, sir.
And do you recall making an observation of a bicycle track in the dirt that rides over the cell phone and appears to skid out right there at the end of it? Do you see that in the picture?
I do see that, yes.
Does it appear to be a bike track starting at the cone here and then going would this be in a westerly direction? The top of the photo is to the west, is that right?
Correct.
The bottom of the photo is to the east?
Yes.
And so it's, as he comes towards us, it's going in an easterly direction, correct?
Yes.
And so does it appear to be a track from a bicycle coming from the west, entering at that cone and going onto the dirt and driving over the top of that cell phone?
Objection. I mean, speculative opinion.
I'm sustained unless he knows. I don't want him to speculate.
Does there appear to be a track there in the dirt?
There does, yes, appear to be a track in the dirt.
You don't know how that track was caused, correct?
Correct.
But you do see the track that I'm referring to, agreed?
I do.
And it appears to take, you follow the track, it goes over the top of the cell phone, agreed?
That seems likely, yes.
And that, in this area that I'm pointing out here at the bottom of the photo, there appears to be a thicker portion of the track, correct?
Yes.
And the track takes an abrupt turn from the previous direction that it was going in before, is that right?
Yes.
And the cell phone back cover that you have there, that's actually cracked, isn't it?
I know it had some dirt on it. I don't recall it being cracked.
Okay. You had earlier been at the scene of where the vehicle was, is that right?
Yes.
You took lots of photos of the scene where the car and the trailer were, is that right?
Yes.
And you'd made out a report about that, is that correct?
Yes.
And you recall, do you recall seeing, do you know where the car was in relation to the other pieces of evidence? Do you have a memory of that?
I do.
Showing you what's been marked as exhibit number 285, does that appear to be a photo of the car next to the trailer as you recall it?
Yes.
All right, and so just roughly, I know there's all these other evidence pieces, do you know what E1 or E3 or 7 or 8 or the other numbers those stand for?
I do not.
Okay, and so I'm not going to ask you about those, I just want to ask you about the vehicle.
Okay.
As I hold up here, 285, the top of this is to the north, is that right?
Yes.
The bottom would be to the south, is that correct?
Yes.
You made observations of blood in the grass between the car and the trailer, is that right?
Correct.
You made observations of blood in the grass to the south of the front door, is that right? As well as to the north of the front door.
I don't know exactly where those blood spots were that I noticed when I was in there. I just know they were in between the car and the trailer.
Okay, but in relation, on this photo, you wouldn't be able to say where they were in relation to the trailer in the north-south vicinity?
No, sir.
Okay. And same with any markings on the trailer, you wouldn't be able to tell us where those would be. You don't have a memory of that in particular, do you?
No, sir.
Those are the questions I had. Thank you.
Any redirect?
No.
All right, thank you, Deputy Christensen. You can step down. And is Deputy Christensen going to be reserved to recall, or is he free to go?
I apologize, Judge. It's too late for me to ask him 2 more questions.
You moving to reopen cross?
Yes, please.
All right, I'll reopen cross for 2 more questions.
Thank you. You also made observations there between the car and the trailer of multiple shoe or foot impressions, is that right?
Yes.
And you'd said that was between the open door and the trailer.
Yes.
True? That's all, thank you.
Any redirect based on those questions?
No.